Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking. Events occur and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
Across Nigeria, women often face violations that strip them of their dignity, be it through gender-based violence or just acts that strip them of their fundamental human rights, which raises a lot of question around the law. Do we have enough law to protect women, and how well are these laws implemented? Well, joining us this morning live in the studio is Professor Joy Ngozi Ezeilo, a senior advocate of Nigeria, officer of the Order of the Niger, founder Wakol and Tamasak. She is also the former Dean of Law, University of Nigeria, and a former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Trafficking globally. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, ma'am. We are elated, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Morning.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So there was something I actually missed out while introducing you, and I'm curious, I'm sure our viewer is also curious to know who a life bencher is. You're also a life bencher, in addition to being a senior advocate of Nigeria.
Yes.
So, ma'am, who is the life bencher?
A life bencher, body of benchers is actually the highest body of distinction in the legal profession. Okay. And we're the ones that call lawyers to bar and regulate also to a large extent legal education, legal profession, and it consists of those. That's why it's body of benchers, both those in the bar and bench. Okay. So you could be a bencher without being a life bencher. The life bencher is also limited in numbers, but it's just it is what it is.
It is what it is, definitely. Great. Yeah, good to have you once again. So you are the founder of Women Action Collective Wakol.
Yeah, Women's Aid Collective Wakol.
Women's Aid Collective Wakol, I beg your pardon. And I'm sure there was a gap you saw in the system that drove you to, that led to that organization being formed. Talking about women violation and their rights being abused. Can you tell us, just take us a little bit through?
Thank you so much. Yeah, before I founded Wakol in 1997, it's 28 years this year.
Wow, congratulations.
I was a member of Women in Nigeria, and I was the state coordinator, found the state coordinator of Women in Nigeria in Enugu State. I was also the National Publicity Secretary of Women in Nigeria. Women in Nigeria is the first, call it feminist or movement, women's organization that is not government.
Non-governmental.
It was formed in 1982 following the first ever conference of women in Nigeria. And we had both men and women as members. And it was very fundamental in fighting military rule, in ensuring enthronement of democracy we have, and then also fighting for women's rights. And then I was also a member of FIDA, served in different executive capacity in the old Anambra State and post-division of Enugu State, also in Enugu State. But one of the gaps, and it's a very important question you've asked, that led me to founding Wakol was the fact that I noticed that women lack access to justice. And when my mother was widowed, it came the stark difference between a man and a woman, and the treatment women get meted out became very clear. So it was also what propelled me to read law, and I said I was going to be defending the rights of the vulnerable groups. So that lack of access to justice, I knew that there were laws, and then I saw the gulf between law in the books and law in action, law in practice and law in the status book. That you may have law in the statute books that are dead letter, not even applying. People don't know about it. Take, for example, the dowry limitation laws. in the eastern Nigeria in the 50s. Nobody obeys it. It recommends 50 pounds then, which is equivalent of maybe 50 naira, not in the sense of the current exchange rate. So when people come and say, oh, they're asking us to refund millions of naira in dowry, bride price, I say, don't worry, we'll just go and deposit in a customary court, 50 naira. So, but people don't, even when that law was enacted, people never obeyed it, Bride price, for example, in Igbo land is seen as almost like Lobola in Southern Africa. So nobody, I'm just giving an instance. There is a law against bigamy. And even in Nigeria, people don't obey it. So I'm just trying to show you the distinction between law in the book and law in practice, and the fact that some of the laws are ineffective. In fact, even one, the Taslim Elias, who became the president of International Court of Justice and Nigeria's former CJN, said if men in Nigeria were to be tried for bigamy, 95% of them would be in prison. And that's true. That's really true. So just to show you, but then we have laws protecting women, laws protecting children, laws protecting the vulnerable groups, but people say they are not aware. Ignorance of law is not an excuse.
Yes.
But I see lack of accountability, lack of interest in trying to ensure efficacious implementation of these laws. The extant laws are there. So if you talk about violations of rights of women, today we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015. And I was at the forefront of not only just writing that piece of legislation, in the drafting, in the pushing for social and legislative advocacy that led to its passage at national level. And today, luckily, 35 states, in fact, almost all, I think the other states remaining has passed it, have adopted, 35 out of them, have adopted the equivalent at state level of violence against persons law. When you look at children's rights as well, you find that the Child's Rights Act, in fact, 36 states of the Federation have also laws protecting children. So, and who is a child? A child is a person under 18 years of age, and it could be a woman, a young girl, a girl, so long as they are under 18. And when you look at also the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, they have equivalent in all of the states of the Federation, and that is Administration of Criminal Justice Law. They all have protection. There is NAPTIP Act, the TIPLI Law, the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition and Related Matters Act. They are all there. But I think when it comes to violence against women, apart from the domestic law, we will know that we also have international and regional laws. And all of these laws protect women, because you have at the level of United Nations, the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, known as CEDAW, which was enacted by the General Assembly of the United Nations in 1979. Nigeria signed it in 1985. So Nigeria, in international law, is obliged to implement all of the provision, and it's called in 1985, even during military regime, that Nigeria ratified it. Nigeria equally ratified in 2004 what we call the Maputo Protocol, which is the African Charter's protocol on the rights of women in Africa. And it's very specific about women's dignity, prohibiting violence, all forms of violence, including whether perpetrated by its state and its agents, law enforcement. It talks about dignity of a woman. It talks about liberty of a woman, ability, physical harm, prohibiting sexual violence. And I said all forms of violence. So if you look at our VAB law, or the Enugu state also have the VAB law, and Wakul was at the forefront of passing this VAB law, including the Widowhood Protection Act. But what we have is a disconnect between the law and practice. But ignorance of the law is not an excuse, but we need to do more education and enlightenment so that people are aware that it shouldn't be business. We're a society governed by laws. And in a democratic society, there are certain things, minimum expectation, that human rights are respected, that human dignity are respected, that autonomy of a person, that bodily integrity, person's ability to self-determination, liberty. You don't, even if you're an accused person or a suspect, you have your right. And that's why we have Administration of Criminal Justice Act. You have to read the equivalent of Miranda Act, you have right to remain silent. You don't just, badging on persons like what we've seen in recent time, degrading of women. And I think there is this penchant about nakedness or nudity of women. And people are filming it. And, you know, whether older woman, I remember the woman who they say took snail in a forbidden forest. She was also, you know, made naked. Stripped naked. We have the Comfort Emerson case in a bomb. She was stripped naked.
And quite recently, the one in Anambra State.
Of course, that Jennifer, the youth copper, was just so sad. You know, I wept when I saw that. I said, where are we headed? We've lost our humanity. Why would people that are supposed to protect us, protect women and girls, be the one that will expose them? How do we give gun to these reckless people, you know, to go ahead, you know, go around abusing people instead of protecting them, violating them in a most heinous manner? So if you look at it, they didn't even give them chance, and they are introducing themselves. We are coppers, a youth copper. We know is in national service, is a government picking, as we say, so is an asset of the federal government. And you can't treat the person, in fact, nobody even deserves to be treated like that. Men or whether a man or a woman or a boy or girl, we must respect human rights. And the physical infliction of physical harm or, you know, sexual assault. See the way they were drawing her.
Yeah.
See, even when she was naked, I'm like, are these people from Mars, outer space, or where? Where that you're looking at a woman already, she's naked, and you're busy telling her, you know, pulling her. For what purpose? If she's committed a crime, remember, she's not armed. You are the one armed, and yet you couldn't do it in a very civilized manner. I think this is just a big dent, a big stain, you know, on Nigeria, in Anambra State, and then she's entitled to exemplary damages, including that of her comfort. Because you see a question of lack of training. That people that are law enforcement, whether vigilante, whether combined, whether whatever name it goes by, whether Kunejemba, whether Udokachi, whatever, and this equivalent all over Nigeria, that the impunity, you know, impunity is allowed because we tolerate this impunity. That's why it continues. And we have to say zero tolerance. There is no accountability. Accountability to laws that we have enacted, extant laws that I've mentioned. Remember, our Constitution importantly prohibits torture, degrading, inhuman treatment, and punishment. It's prohibited clearly under our Constitution. So you can't, and everybody accused is innocent until found
proven
guilty. So also extrajudicial killing, recklessness in law enforcement, assault is prohibited under criminal law, penal laws, and they were assaulted. She was assaulted. She was her
beaten.
Dignity was taken away. Her sanctuary, you know, just exposed to ridicule. It's going to take a lot of time, you know, for her to recover from this trauma. And that's why we said also, people who are victims, if you want to call it survivors, require a bit of they require support to overcome their victimization, to even heal. And sometimes we don't have enough of that. I'm very happy that we drafted, and it's Section 38 of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which personally I was part of drafting in the original 2015 document, took care of this because it provides for protection, providing legal, medical, assistance, psychological support. So how are we giving it to this young lady? I expect also much from NYSC. They were just making it a domestic issue. This is a very national issue, and we wanted to hear from the top leadership, the highest leadership of NYSC, because also for far too long, people have also violated fundamental human rights of coppers. Right. I remember the Grace Oshang in 2009, who was murdered, raped and murdered in Borno, and around her neighborhood, and she was a national youth copper because for wearing khaki trouser. You know, many other coppers in the electoral jobs have lost their lives. There was a recent one in Sokoto again. You know, so you have that pocket of it around the country. And they have also been violated. I'm glad that they've stopped even some tests they call pregnancy and virginity tests, where they were even openly testing female coppers. You know. So some of this violation is ingrained, they are deep-rooted, deep-rooted in our stereotypical attitudes, and sex stereotypes of women, seeing women as sex object, as the other. So it's just like they were watching porn live, you know, by
they were videoing it,
and then videoing and releasing that. Can also be responsible without protecting and covering that, and it was there making there. So there is no amount of damages. She deserved to be compensated. Those who inflicted this harm on her deserve to face the wrath of the law. They have to be prosecuted and punished for that. So take example, because very soon we will forget. And next time you may hear that they've even enlisted, been promoted from being a local community vigilante to being in the public force. So you can imagine if you arm them and they're part of mobile police, what they would do. I served in the end of SARS judicial panel of inquiry for Enugu State on police brutality, and I know what we had. You know, it is systematic, and some of these law enforcement, they disappear people, kill people extrajudicially, and nobody lives. It's just because on the one hand, I condemn the video strongly, especially in not protecting her, but on the other hand, also, as some people have argued, if that video didn't surface, we wouldn't have even known, because remember, this happened on 23rd of August. So how come that it took this long before we heard about the matter? It was when the video surfaced. Otherwise, so you can imagine in fact, even from the narration of count of the lawyer in Anambra State who is representing the lady, and I'm also ready to join force in also supporting, including WACO, in legal action, you know, for her, and ensuring that those people prosecuting even the accused person or the suspect, because they said that they even started offering, you can't be in this state without even having, you need to have like a boyfriend like us to protect you, you know, and then trying to even befriend them afterwards, and even the extortion of money. That was we've seen, and these are things that also led to disbandment of the NSAS when young people are targeted. So it looks like young people are really so vulnerable, so exposed, and there has been an exacerbation of gender-based violence, even in public spaces, and we need to check it. The government needs to declare a state of emergency. Remember, during COVID time, the state of emergency was then declared by the then government of Buhari, following what happened in Benin, how that lady was murdered and raped. I don't think anything has changed from the spike we've seen, but the major issue is breaking the silence, and women's you know, because there's a lot of stigma. So when initially they say she dropped charges, you know, you'll be ashamed of what has happened to you. You just want to, you know,
end that chapter very quickly.
Exactly. So, and then before it downs on you, and then, you know, now they say they are ready to prosecute, she wants to press charges. I think even without her pressing charges, there are certain, if people go outside, you know, they were enacted by law, acting lawfully, but they have exceeded. They are acting in excess of their mandate, recklessly. So they are liable for doing those unlawful acts. Of course, when you say assaulting a police officer on a duty attracts very big punishment, that is because they know they are protected, and they have upper hand in terms of the power relation. So they ought to know that when you're dealing with citizens, and in broad daylight, you know, why? And even if you had knocked at somebody's door, they thought it was armed robbers.
Shouldn't they have rules for engagement?
And then even for entering, because you can't say the law empowered them to search anywhere. No, it doesn't work like that. And then you have to knock, there must be a protocol, a standard operation procedure.
Yes.
You knock and you wait, and you introduce yourself, and you can have a microphone and say, we are this and this and this. They said even their faces were covered. How do you go about covering your face? Even this is a practice in Nigeria that is becoming really very annoying. You see people on the road saying that they are covered, you know, marauding themselves. You don't know which one is robbers. You don't know which one is protected. It is actually very fearful. They are a mufti. They are, you know, so we have to have a way that these people are dressed properly, they identify themselves, because if they have identified themselves, we are this arm of security for the state, and we are here, we are searching, please come out. We will, you know, and they can go in peacefully and search everywhere. But when you meet people in their home where how you dress, because you're in your home, Because some people will say, women are causing this violence because of the way. Please, let's leave it. Because it has nothing, absolutely nothing with the way they dress. I've been in this space for more than 3 decades. Wakol is 28 years old. Wakol has provided over 82,000 legal representation to women and children in vulnerable, including persons with disability, in vulnerable situation whose rights, human rights have been violated, including also survivors of sexual and gender-based violence.
Okay.
And I know that even 2-year-old baby, we have seen a baby who was raped. In fact, there is one that came yesterday, so pathetic. At 7, she's been serially abused. That, it's just horrible, what she's going through with the infections and everything. So every day, so it's not about their dressing, it's not about how because even those ones that we see, children victim of child abuse, molestation, sexual, they don't have any breast, nothing in their bosom, nothing to say is attractive.
So what would be the attraction now?
Is a pedophile, and they prep on these people. So it is for society to really draw the line, zero tolerance, and make sure that people are held accountable for their acts. So long as there is low prosecution and people are not in jail for the offenses they've committed. Elsewhere, we have also this sexual offenders register, and then maintaining it properly. Elsewhere in civilized society, if you're trying to move to a neighborhood, you want to know whether convicted persons of certain crimes and violent crimes, sexual abuse are living in that neighborhood. And if you have children and they are living in such neighborhood, you don't want to move to such neighborhood. So, and they make it, you can see it all pointed out, like you're using Google Map to get to your TV. So it is imperative that we end this impunity, because if you have such a culture of impunity, for me, I'm even afraid that some of these young people may not know even what they are doing. Because it's not enough, and some, of course, we know are on drugs, and we know some of the law enforcement officers are on drugs. I was very elated when I had the IGP of police saying that there has to be drug tests and those found wanting, because it is also a problem of the society, but it's not an excuse. So we make sure that they are properly trained, and that within that there is law and order. And that law and order is, because if you don't, as we are fighting insecurity, which is plaguing the entire Nigeria, then there is tendency that human rights will become violated. So we must strike a balance, respect human rights of people, respect even the rights of suspects, and make sure that their fundamental human rights are abused. It doesn't stop you from doing your work. It wouldn't stop you from doing your work. We must respect women's bodily integrity. This idea of stripping women, this idea of nudity, their bodies, our bodies is our sanctuary, and must be respected. This year is 30 years post-Beijing, and 30 years post-Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action. They identified violence against women and women's poverty, but violence against women as the most surreptitious violation of human rights of women. And it's playing out every day in Nigeria. So we need to educate our young boys, catch them young, to build, to shift attitude, and then also develop kind of positive masculinity. It's not issue of very negative masculinity, of power over you, I am stronger, I can do, you can just violate, rape them. Because I wonder, and I've seen it because I've been in different panels, including the one set up sometime by National Human Rights Commission during the last regime. We were there in the panel investigating sexual and gender-based violence, and we saw a lot of abuses, even by then environmental agencies in Abuja. They would come and round off women, even those walking the street. I recall one case, the woman traveled from Akwa Ibom to Abuja, arrived later, it's such a long journey, and was just very close to the park looking for a taxi, and she was impounded in the process. She was assaulted, she was sexually molested by the same people that's supposed to protect her. And she was showing, this is my ticket, for the transport, and I just arrived from. So why would people just be rounding up women, calling them prostitutes, and tagging them? So there is something about this sexualized thing, about
With women.
with women and women's body.
All right, Prof, you've spoken a lot to this issue. However, I want to find out, given your expertise and your experience, what fundamentally do you think has given such impetus to the impunity we see, amongst, security agents and operatives?
Yeah, sometimes, we have a system, we don't have a professional, I'm sorry to say, especially the police. DSS to a large extent is very professional. The army, of course, they are very professional, but some of these changes when you come to the lower ranks, and of recent you can see them being pinpointed in even kidnapping cases and all of these people implicated. Yes, the economy is bad, the conditions of services are bad, but I think also the recruitment process is flawed.
Absolutely.
It is so flawed.
So much gaps.
So much gaps. And even the training. There was a time we tried to infuse, and I believe now that the police, for example, have even gender decks on women. We tried to infuse in the curriculum for training of the police issues on violence against women and girls, or even children, and how to handle cases around that, including juvenile justice, because this thing touch on several human rights of people, even boys, juvenile, under 17, you see them placed in the same cell with adult male. They are sexually abused as well by men. Men having sex with men and boys. So it is really impunity. So we need to take seriously the issue of training, recruitment, because in this country, merit is not what is given priority. That is just a common knowledge. It's where you come from, who you are, which state, how you're positioned, and that's what counts. And then you will see there is no equity in the process. One state can get 1,000, the next state will get 10. And people just use their position to bring in their people. And even in the process, that's why when they talk about this, they say, oh, even the insurgency fighting, it is so infiltrated because people are leaking information, because they have recruited wrongly, no background checks. So you need to do all of this. You don't recruit somebody who is already on drugs into a force. It can only get worse, and it will bring more people. So you need to do all of your checks. Training is continuous, and discipline should be continuous. Then on the aspect of law is lack of enforcement of laws. And there are many things, even administrators of justice, in the justice ecosystem is also problematic. How long cases take, investigation that comes from the police, and then handing over to the DPP's office, the state. So there is always a lot of delays. And in the process, it becomes low prosecution. I always give example. For every 10 rape cases, even maybe reported, let me use the reported one, maybe 3 maybe will end up being prosecuted. Or even only 2. And then none may be convicted. If you're lucky, 1. I know a case of a rape leading to a death of 80-year-old, 2014. The case is still going on. So what will it take? Why is this case? Yes, I'm a lawyer, I'm a senior advocate. We know the criminal justice system is. So, and that's part of the reform that the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 and the equivalent in all the state administration of justice law targeted to cure. But we are still not, it's not even 40% implemented. And then you look at all the other laws, it's the same problem. Because I tell people to argue and advocate and get law passed is one step. But law is not a panacea. Law on itself is not self-executing. We have to have people pushing for accountability. Accountability is very important. Low prosecution doesn't encourage people. There must be deterrent. There must be appropriate punishment, for people. If people are not seeing that, then they will think you can get away with blue money. So it is important to ensure that we enforce extant law, and speedily too. Because if you don't do a speedily trial, it lingers on and people lose interest, and then and they can get away with it.
Absolutely.
So the system is rough. And then the issue of compensation, it's just like people are doing self-help. It's just like you're giving a gun, giving a wage that doesn't really, is not a living wage, and then you now go about to make up for yourself. So you see now people who are in law enforcement going about extorting money from people. instead of doing their work. So if you extort money, so how will you now be fair in your? So the bribery, corruption they see from beginning to top, from the political class, from the elite, from politicians. So the entire system is corrupt. And we need to really keep pushing. We need to keep pushing for change, not just in the justice ecosystem, in the outer, because it's not the, when we think the judges, but remember, there are other actors before it even gets to the court.
Absolutely.
And there are other actors that are also part of the delay. There are times that the judges themselves are frustrated. They will come together, people who are taking adjournment. It's not the judge, they are the ones who are asking for it. So, but at the end of the day, it could be them, they are the ones that, first people see, but they don't know other technicalities and other processes that are in place. And there has to be enlightenment. There is no shortcut. Public enlightenment is very important. And we have to lead by example. Which aspect of the society is not annoying these days? You see people drive like they are mentally, something is wrong with them. You see a one lane where two cars, and they will go and block even the other lane with oncoming vehicles. And you're like, what is wrong? And you hardly find that in many countries. I can tell you, you can have traffic in Nairobi the way you have in Lagos, but you can't find people drive the way they drive. You can have traffic elsewhere in Casablanca, in Cairo. You can't have people drive the way they drive in Nigeria. And these things are part of when we had that war against indiscipline. Things were even better. Looking back to what we have today, you will now know that it was a whole even then. That now it has gone out of hand, and almost a whole generation have imbibed bad attitude,
values,
wrong values, that we need value clarification. Even in relationship of boys and girls, you see fellow student raping student,
or even killing
them. And one that we had the case, they came to classroom, people were reading, and they ordered this girl, and they say it's cult boys, and they ordered her out, and they went and raped her. And at least to say nothing happens, So it is really a strange world we are living in Nigeria, and we must ensure accountability. Speak out, and break the silence, and make sure people are held to account. There is this education, no shortcuts to, agitating that the right things must be done, demanding accountability. And I tell you, demand side is weak. The demand side is weak, and we have to continue to raise that accountability stake. And it's not just something we leave to civil society, we leave to women's group like Wakol, FIDA, name it. No, it is something that we all have to be in it together, so that we can have a society with culture of respect for dignity of all, of respect for dignity of womanhood, of respect to fundamental human rights. People that knows boundaries, not people who think they can do anything and get away, and they boast about it, and they actually get away with it. Because at times I wonder how many people have been disappeared, how many people have been extrajudicially killed, how many people have been detained falsely, and you go there in prison, you can see people languishing in jail for years for nothing, and the system is slow. So we have to keep working on this and demanding accountability, doing professionalization, re-professionalization of law enforcement agencies, because unfortunately it has all become politicized, every single arm of it. And that's really a danger signal. And the politicization doesn't stop in that. It has entered the education system, the ivory towers, and so we are basically destroying every system, polluting it with politics, and very terrible politics. Then where does that leave this society in 10 years' time, in 20 years down the line? So we have to see it as our collective duty to rebuild this our country. And as our national anthem says, hand a nation, a banner without stain. This banner is so stained that we need to all join hands in cleaning it up. It is our country. I have no other country. And I want to make it work. I'll be happy it works for me. I'll be happy we have safe cities. We have safe cities for women where they can walk about without thinking that they will be violated. Safe cities for our children without facing the kind of harassment that they do. We want to see safe campuses where girls are not sexually harassed. I want to see, that human rights of people are protected, that we have conscience, that we have, because now no human conscience. People are killing others to harvest their organ, they are selling. Everything is business, from mercantile politics to everything is business and survival and how you can make money illegally, and there is no value placed on the source of money, and then on respect for people who live poor, they are poor and decent. And we have to do that, build the economy, make sure human development, that it impacts on people, because that's very important, and start depoliticizing the system. It is so highly politicized. Today, it's like we are even going to have election next week, and it's not. So why is the system so highly politicized? Politics. And as I media, please, can we take a back seat? Look at people of Nigeria. Look at people of Nigeria that are hungry, that are angry, that can't even afford to buy basic medication, that are dying, how right to life is abrogated by all of this. Can we just take a pause? Can we take a pause as a nation? Enough is enough. Let us build this country so that it can be country of dreams of our foreparents, forefathers, mothers, our motherland that we can be proud of, that will work for all, irrespective of your status. That you're poor doesn't mean you won't have access to justice, you're nobody. Every law should be able to take its effect, irrespective of your social, economic, and political status.
Absolutely, Prof. We actually share in your sentiments. Let's talk about, I want to pick it up from what you said. You said that the demand side for accountability is actually weak. And I remember we read on the National Daily that according to Comfort Emerson, that she has forgiven all who violated her. She's willing to let go. Now my question is, do you think that the lesser proportion of these offenders who eventually get prosecuted, do you think somehow they reach out or may probably threaten the victim? Because you find out that most of them, they don't want to come forward, they don't want to prosecute. Yes. So do you think there's something happening behind the curtains that we're not seeing, which is why we see lesser and lesser number of offenders being prosecuted?
Yeah, a lot happens. There is a lot of impact of culture, even in our enforcement mechanism, how deep corruption is, who knows who, what is your status up there. Before, even if you accuse someone of rape, if there's a person of high status, you may not see police act, you may not also see the other actors want to act. The issue is that, yes, even we know what happened in the previous case of the popular musician, one, and then two, and then the forgiveness, and then people are even saying, in the case of Anambra, I had some people responding to my tweet saying, why don't we make them ambassadors, even those that committed this serious crime? But they were just playing a joke that since we're beginning to normalize and trivialize a very serious event, I think there should be a number of lessons learned from those experiences. And it is for the aviation sector, like I said, to put in those lessons learned, make sure people are professionally trained. For me, I've traveled the world. I've traveled at least more than 130 countries or 140 countries in the world. And I see, that even in plane, if you have an incident and you want to arrest somebody, when the plane lands, nobody disembarks. Then you invite the security personnel, which they will have radio, they will come in and take the person away in a very civilized manner. I'm not sure if the person who committed that has been taken away in that manner when every other person is insisted. They are not going to make that type of drama and noise and dragging. But then you see people who couldn't handle a situation, including from the air hostesses, because sometimes I notice hostility more even towards women and younger women. They wouldn't treat men the same way.
I agree.
They treat women. That I already
100%.
noticed. And especially in Nigerian dimension. They as if to say somebody else is the one paying your ticket. So as a woman, they have a way, even for the fellow women, internalize this kind of behavior that has become part of the sex stereotype, typical attitude of women. So they see them, who knows who paid for this one. So they begin from there to be antagonistic, because they are not, so you can't talk to them pleasantly. You can't cooperate. From the incident we had, even though They said the girl, was rude at her, but at the beginning she wasn't, because she said, I can't put off this phone. Help me. And it has to be someone sitting who can. Even if you don't want to touch her phone, you can say, okay, please, can you, another person on this seat, what is the problem?
Just be civil.
You be civil and say, okay, let's try and put it off. But you just want to show a bit of
dominance
and power relation for a case of your customer. And look at how, without even investigation, they came out and say live ban. What is live ban on flying? And I laughed and I said, so you want to even sentence the person to death? It's as clear as that. Because in a country with the kind of huge security challenges we have, so you tell somebody no flying.
You can't fly.
So that means already maybe within a year or few years, the person is dead. Because the kind of risk people are exposed on the road every day is not something, is not a small matter. So the issue without investigation. So I think it is time for the key stakeholders in the aviation sector to come in and put the proper procedure. The problem with Nigeria is effective implementation of any standard. If you go there, they may have it on the books, but they don't know. Yes, we know, even I've been one that will always put my phone. I know that if I travel elsewhere, that I use my iPad, I watch film till watch documentary till the plane lands. They will tell you can continue using your tablet in airplane mode throughout the flight until it lands. But I know in Nigeria that they don't allow. So I don't even go to the argument at all, because I know that our situation, even me, I said every day you fly, you come back, you thank God. Because even all the safety procedures, the age of the planes and all of that. So why would you? I always tell people, please cooperate, because some of these planes and things we have, they are not even as modern as the ones that they have elsewhere, because you enter on that flight, after a while they have Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi can be accessed by the passengers, and they just say don't talk on the plane, don't do this thing, but Wi-Fi is accessible, and you're doing your internet, you're messaging people from Cloud9, I call it. So, and I do that all the time, but in Nigeria it's a different game, and I understand as well, because our culture also, people don't also part with their phone. At times I wonder, what were we doing before the phone? Because some people will enter the plane, it is the time they have the plane, they are trying to put their hand, they are passing through security, they have their phone, they never really cease. And then they will be there, they will talk business, talk money. I say, well, why all of this discussion? All of a sudden it is just joining this plane. They will even put it, we have terrible attitude as well. They will even put it on a speaker voice, and then force everybody to participate in their discussion. So we have a long way to go in terms of educating our people, because they behave very acutely. They are very rude, and they carry this type of behavior, to wherever they go, and it's really bad. So we need to begin to let's not assume that they know, because my fear is that they don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know anymore. That we have to be very clear and educate, and then we expect people, of course, to comply, but on the side of they have to be able to respect customership and make sure clients' right. I expect that they'll bring out passengers' right, passengers' responsibility. Have that disseminated as you're buying your ticket. They call your attention, and they have it put at the lounge boldly everywhere, from the time of check-in to where you bought the plane. So that people are conversant with that.
Absolutely. All right, Prof, thank you so much. But as a parting shot, there's someone listening to you right now, she or he has been abused, or he or she's right has been violated, and he or she doesn't have a name that is up there, or godfather. What should she or he do?
Please don't give up. Even if you're daughter or son of nobody, don't give up. You have to raise your head, your shoulder, and just know and say, I'm not alone in this, and I will have to report, I will have to seek justice, and I will have to break my silence. Just be determined. If you break your silence, if you look for support and report to human rights organizations like WACO, you can be sure that we will hear you, we will listen, we will give you a shoulder to lean on, and we will make sure that you get justice. We are for justice for all. Absolutely. Don't give up, because some people even give up even without trying. Parents give up too. I see that every day. People come, oh, their daughter is raped, I don't want case, let's just go. And then you don't know the healing will never come for the closure
Sure.
will never come
That's true.
for that. Please fight for your right. Don't
Thank
give
you.
up. I know it might be a tall order. Some will say in the process they are threatened, but please tell someone, break that silence. Even from beginning, immediately tell someone what you've gone through. So when you heal and you feel strong enough, then you can report. Time doesn't run out of those criminal matters so long as you preserve the evidence. So we should together fight this menace and this impunity of violation of fundamental human rights, especially of the vulnerable groups such as women and children. It is too much, because if we go into even the physical abuse and sexual abuse of children, even the house help phenomenon, I think there is something happening even in Igbo land. I'm sorry, I wouldn't want to stigmatize the race. I'm an Igbo and I'm a proud Igbo, but something is going on that is wrong in terms of the kind of abuse and punishment. And you can't expect children to fast, and then you're becoming very fundamentalist in your religious obligation that you will force children under 10 to go on a dry fast a whole day. The kind of hunger that can send them mental, and that's why they will do all kinds of things, and then you inflict the kind of punishment that you inflict on them. So we should be, we are quite aggressive. We need to take a step back, and they need to also start dealing with perpetrators to know, the psychology, how does it work, treatment for them, not just punishment, treatment and punishment, especially when domestic relationship is involved, because a lot of things is going on, including drug use and heightened violence in the society and politics. So it's do or die affair, and people just you have to be strong and impose your way, cultism, all kinds of things. So those vices, we must continue to speak out against those vices.
I stand with you 100%. Thank you so much, Professor Joy Ngozi Ezeilo, SAN-O and Life Venture, founder of Women Aid Collective and Tamasak. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time and for your very deep insights.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for having me.
Okay, so going forward, we are going to bring you an important conversation, a part 2 of Professor Chidi Odinkalo's interview with Vin Martin Ilo as he speaks on Igbo Nation and other allied issues. Do take a listen.